Welcome back, everyone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of the target breach? A few years ago, attackers didn't break through a massive firewall. They didn't exploit some super advanced zero-day. They got in through an HVAC vendor's stolen credentials, then moved across the network until they reached the cash registers. How? They exploited network protocols that most people ignore. That's why Domain 4, Communication and Network Security, is not just another chapter, it's the backbone of every organization's defense. Today, we're going to master the architecture, protocols, and defenses of the digital world. Here's how I've structured this masterclass. For every major concept, I'll break it down from both the technical side and the business side, because you need to know not just how it works, but why it matters to the bottom line. Then, I'll give you questions. Not just one or two, three, plus a challenge question to really stretch your thinking. I'll read the question, then I want you to pause the video and really think about it. Don't just guess. Work through it. When you come back, I'll not only tell you the correct answer, but explain exactly why the wrong answers are wrong. After that, I'll share the traps that even experienced security pros fall into, because knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. And finally, I'll give you 3 practical tips to lock the concept in forever. Stick with me through this entire video, and I promise you, you will walk away with a rock-solid network security mindset. Let's get started. Let's start with something that confuses a lot of people, but once you get it, everything else becomes clearer. I'm talking about the OSI model and the TCP/IP model. Here's an analogy I want you to remember. When you ship a package, you put it in a box. That box goes on a truck. The truck goes onto a train. The train goes onto a ship. Each layer adds its own handling, labeling, tracking, protection, but the original item inside never changes. Networks work exactly the same way. That's called encapsulation. The OSI model has 7 layers. Think of them as floors in a building. Floor 1 is physical, the cables, the bits, the actual electricity or light pulses. Floor 2 is data link, that's MAC addresses and switches. Floor 3 is network, IP addresses and routing. Floor 4 is transport, TCP and UDP ports. Floor 5 is session, setting up and tearing down conversations. Floor 6 is presentation, encryption, translation, formatting. And floor 7 is application, the actual programs you use, like your browser or email client. Now, the TCP/IP model condenses those 7 floors into 4. Network access covers floors 1 and 2. Internet covers floor 3. Transport covers floor 4. Application covers floors 5, 6, and 7. Why does this matter? Because when a network goes down, you don't want to guess. You want to isolate the problem. If you can't ping the router, the issue might be at layer 1, a bad cable, or layer 3, a wrong IP address. Knowing which layer each tool works at saves hours of troubleshooting. And downtime costs money, sometimes thousands of dollars per minute. Let me give you a real example. A hospital's network goes offline. Patients can't be admitted. Doctors can't access records. The IT team starts checking cables, nothing. They check switches, nothing. Finally, someone notices that a router has the wrong static route. That's a layer 3 problem. By knowing their layers, they fixed it in 20 minutes instead of 4 hours. Alright, let's test your understanding. I'm going to read the first question. Pause the video, think it through, then come back. Question 1. Which OSI layer is responsible for logical addressing and routing? A. Data link, B. Network, C. Transport, D. Session. Pause now. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Network. Data link handles MAC addresses, not IP. Transport handles ports. Session manages dialogues. If you got that right, excellent. If not, now you know. Question 2. In the TCP/IP model, which layer corresponds to the OSI transport layer? A. Network access, B. Internet, C. Transport, D. Application. Pause. Welcome back. The answer is C. Transport. The TCP/IP transport layer directly matches the OSI transport layer. Internet matches OSI network. Network access matches OSI physical and data link. Application matches OSI session, presentation, and application. That's a common exam trick, make sure you have that mapping down. Question 3, harder. A network analyst captures a packet that has an Ethernet header, an IP header, a TCP header, and an HTTP payload. Which OSI layers are represented in this packet? A. Physical, data link, network, transport, application, B. Data link, network, transport, application, C. Data link, network, transport, session, D. Physical, network, transport, application. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Ethernet header is data link. IP header is network. TCP header is transport. HTTP payload is application. The physical layer is the actual bits on the wire, it doesn't have a header. Session and presentation are not represented here. Great job if you caught that. Challenge question. A network engineer says, the session can't be established. Which layer should they investigate? A. 1 and 2, B. 3 and 4, C. 5 only, D. 7 only. Pause. Answer, C. Layer 5 only. Session establishment is purely a layer 5 function. That's a tricky one, but now you know. Now, let me save you from 3 traps that even experienced engineers fall into. Trap number 1, thinking the OSI model is obsolete. It's not. It's still the blueprint for troubleshooting and design. Don't ignore it. Trap number 2, mixing up the order of layers. Here's a mnemonic I still use: please do not throw sausage pizza away. Physical, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, application. Write it down. Trap number 3, believing that each layer works independently. They don't, they work together through encapsulation. When you change something at layer 2, it affects layer 3. Now, 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, draw the OSI stack every day for a week. Label each layer with one function and one example device. It takes 2 minutes and it works. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see a question about MAC addresses, think layer 2. IP addresses, layer 3. Ports, layer 4. This simple rule will get you through many questions. Tip 3, when you troubleshoot a real network problem, force yourself to say I think this is a layer X problem. Then prove it. That practice will make the OSI model second nature. You've just built the foundation. Now, let's go down to the bottom, layers 1 and 2, and see why a simple protocol like ARP can be a hacker's best friend. Let me tell you a quick story. Back in 2013, attackers stole credentials from an HVAC vendor that worked with Target. They got onto the vendor's network, and then used a technique called ARP poisoning to jump from the HVAC system to Target's internal cash register network. They didn't break through any firewall. They just tricked the network switches into sending traffic to them. That's the power, and danger, of layer 2. Layer 1 is the physical stuff: cables, fiber optics, radio waves. Threats here are simple but effective: cut a cable, jam a wireless signal, or tap into a line to eavesdrop. Not glamorous, but devastating. Layer 2 is where we have MAC addresses, those 48-bit unique identifiers burned into every network card. Switches operate at this layer. They isolate collision domains, meaning each port can send and receive without colliding with others. That was a big improvement over old hubs. Then there's ARP, the address resolution protocol. Here's what it does. Your computer knows the IP address of the default gateway, but it doesn't know the gateway's MAC address. So it broadcasts, "Who has this IP?" The gateway replies, "I do, here's my MAC." The problem? ARP is completely trusting. It will accept any reply from anyone. That's why an attacker can send a fake ARP reply saying, "I'm the gateway, send all your traffic to me." That's ARP poisoning. Once they do that, they become the man in the middle. They see every packet, steal every credential. From a business perspective, an ARP poisoning attack costs an average of $200,000 per incident, data theft, remediation, downtime. And it happens all the time on poorly segmented networks. Let's test you. Question 1. What does ARP map? A. Domain name to IP, B. IP address to MAC address, C. MAC address to port, D. Port to protocol. Pause. Answer B. IP to MAC. DNS maps domain to IP. Right on. Question 2. At which OSI layer do switches primarily operate? A. Physical, B. Data link, C. Network, D. Transport. Pause. Answer B. Data link. Switches use MAC addresses. Routers are layer 3. Excellent. Question 3, harder. An attacker sends forged ARP replies, associating their MAC with the default gateway's IP. What is this attack, and what risk does it create? A. MAC flooding, switch overload, B. ARP poisoning, enables man-in-the-middle, C. DNS spoofing, redirects web traffic, D. DHCP starvation, denies IP leases. Pause. Answer B. ARP poisoning. The attacker becomes the man in the middle, intercepting all traffic to the gateway. That's a key exam concept, memorize it. Challenge question. A network uses dynamic ARP inspection, DAI. How does DAI prevent ARP poisoning? A. It blocks all ARP traffic, B. It validates ARP packets against a trusted DHCP snooping database, C. It encrypts ARP replies, D. It uses certificates. Pause. Answer B. DAI validates ARP against the DHCP snooping binding table. Superb, you know advanced defense. Now, 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking ARP is secure. It is not. It has no authentication. Never assume it's safe. Trap 2, believing that switches prevent ARP poisoning. They don't. You need dynamic ARP inspection or similar. Trap 3, forgetting that ARP only works on the local network. It cannot cross a router. So if you segment properly, you limit the blast radius. 3 tips. Tip 1, remember the simple formula, ARP equals IP to MAC. Say it out loud. Tip 2, on the exam, if you read fake MAC reply on a local network, think ARP poisoning. Tip 3, mitigation is DAI or static ARP entries, but static ARP is a pain to manage. Now that you see how dangerous Layer 2 can be, let's move up to Layer 3, where routing and IP addresses live. This is where the internet really works, and where NAT saves us from running out of IPs. In 2020, a small ISP in Pennsylvania made a mistake. They leaked a bad BGP route, Border Gateway Protocol, the way routers talk to each other. Within minutes, Google's traffic was being routed through China and Russia. For almost an hour, people couldn't reach Google. This is Layer 3 in action, and when it goes wrong, the whole world notices. Layer 3 is the network layer. It's where IP addresses live. IPv4 uses 32-bit addresses, about 4.3 billion. And we ran out years ago. So how are you reading this? Network Address Translation, or NAT. NAT takes a private IP address, like 192.168.1.10, and translates it to a public IP when you go out to the internet. When the response comes back, NAT translates it back. It's a checkpoint that also hides your internal structure. IPv6 fixes the address exhaustion problem with 128-bit addresses. That's enough for every grain of sand on Earth. IPv6 eliminates the need for NAT, but adoption has been slow. Routers are the devices that work at layer 3. They separate broadcast domains and make forwarding decisions based on IP addresses. They're the traffic directors of the Internet. From a business perspective, a BGP leak or misconfiguration can cost millions in lost revenue. Google's 2020 leak was brief, but even a few minutes of downtime for a major e-commerce site can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Let's test you. Question 1. Which of the following is a private IP address range? A. 8.8.8.8, B. 172.32.0.1, C. 192.168.1.1, D. 203.0.113.1. Pause. Answer C. 192.168.1.1 is in the private range. 8.8.8.8 is Google's public DNS. 172.32.0.1 is not private. Private is 172.16.0.0 to 172.31.255.255. Great catch. Question 2. What is the primary purpose of NAT? A. Improve network speed. B. Translate private IPs to public IPs. C. Encrypt data. D. Filter malicious packets. Pause. Answer B. NAT translates addresses. Speed and encryption are not its job. Filtering is a firewall's job. That's correct. Question 3, harder. A company uses NAT to let internal devices reach the Internet. An external attacker scans the public IP and sees only port 443 open on the NAT gateway. However, an internal user visits a malicious website that exploits a browser vulnerability. How does NAT affect the attack? A. NAT prevents all inbound attacks. B. NAT does not prevent outbound initiated attacks. The attacker can still reach the internal device if the user initiated the connection. C. NAT encrypts the user's traffic. D. NAT logs the attack and blocks it. Pause. Answer B. NAT only translates addresses. Once a user initiates a connection, a temporary mapping allows return traffic. The attacker can exploit the browser vulnerability through that established connection. Excellent reasoning. Challenge question. What is the main reason IPv6 eliminates the need for NAT? A. IPv6 is faster. B. IPv6 has vastly more addresses, so every device can have a globally unique IP. C. IPv6 includes built-in encryption. D. IPv6 does not use routers. Pause. Answer B. Massive address space. 128 bits means we don't need to conserve addresses. No more hiding behind NAT. Well done. 3 traps. Trap 1. Thinking NAT is a security control. It's not. It provides obscurity, not security. A determined attacker can still target open ports. Trap 2. Believing that private IPs are completely safe. They are not routable on the Internet, but an attacker inside your network can see them. Trap 3. Forgetting that IPv6 is not just a bigger address space, it also changes how we do security. No NAT means every device could be directly reachable. Plan your firewalls accordingly. 3 tips. Tip 1. Know the private IP ranges, 10.0.0.0/8, 172.16.0.0/12, 192.168.0.0/16. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see hides internal addresses, think NAT. Tip 3. When you hear IPv6 eliminates NAT, remember it's about address space, not speed or encryption. Now that you understand how data is routed across networks, let's talk about how it gets delivered reliably, or not. That's where TCP and UDP come in. One is like an armored truck, the other like a paper airplane. Imagine you're sending a suitcase full of cash. Would you hand it to a courier who double-checks every step and confirms delivery, or would you just toss it into the wind? That's the difference between TCP and UDP. TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, is the armored transport. It's connection-oriented. It sets up a session with a three-way handshake. You've seen it, SYN, SYN ACK. It sequences packets. It checks for errors. It retransmits lost packets. It's reliable. That's why web browsing, file transfers, and secure shell use TCP. UDP, User Datagram Protocol, is the rapid pitcher. It's connectionless. No handshake. No sequencing. No error correction. It just throws the data and hopes for the best. It's fast, but unreliable. That's exactly what you want for VoIP calls. A resend would just create more delay, and for video streaming, where a few lost frames are better than buffering. Even DNS uses UDP for simple queries because the overhead of TCP would be too high. From a business perspective, choosing the wrong protocol can break your application. Use UDP for real-time voice and video. Use TCP for anything that must be accurate. Now, let's test you. Question 1. Which protocol is connection-oriented and uses a three-way handshake? A. UDP, B. TCP, C. ICMP, D. ARP. Pause. Answer B. TCP. You got it. Question 2. Which of the following applications typically uses UDP? A. HTTPS, B. SSH, C. VoIP, D. FTP. Pause. Answer C. VoIP. Real-time voice can tolerate some loss but not delay. Excellent. Question 3, harder. An attacker sends a flood of TCP/SYN packets without completing the handshake. The server allocates resources for each half-open connection until it is overwhelmed. What is this attack, and which protocol is it targeting? A. UDP flood, targets UDP, B. SYN flood, targets TCP, C. ICMP flood, targets ICMP, D. Ping of death, targets ICMP. Pause. Answer B. SYN flood. It exploits the TCP handshake, leaving connections half open. That's a classic DOS attack. Challenge question. A network engineer says, we need to deliver stock market ticker data. A few lost packets are acceptable, but speed is critical. Which protocol should they choose? A. TCP, B. UDP, C. Both equally, D. Neither. Pause. Answer B. UDP. Speed matters more than absolute reliability for real-time financial data. Great decision. 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking UDP is always faster. It is, but at the cost of reliability. Choose based on application needs. Trap 2, confusing SYN flood with other DOS attacks. If you see half-open connections, it's TCP. Trap 3, forgetting that DNS uses both TCP, for large responses, and UDP, for small queries. It's not one or the other. 3 tips. Tip 1, memorize the characteristics, TCP, connection, reliable, handshake, error checking. UDP, connectionless, fast, no handshake. Tip 2, on the exam, if reliability is needed, think TCP. If real-time speed is needed, think UDP. Tip 3, know that SYN flood is a TCP-specific attack. You'll see it on the exam. Now that you know how data is transported, let's move up the stack to the protocols you use every day, DNS, DHCP, and SMTP. These operate at the higher layers, and they have their own security challenges. You use these protocols every single day, probably without thinking about them. DNS turns google.com into an IP address. DHCP gives you an IP address automatically. SMTP sends your email. Each has its own security quirks. Layer 5, the session layer, manages communication sessions. Think of it as the air traffic control for data. It can be simplex, one way, half duplex, one at a time, or full duplex, both ways simultaneously. Layer 6, presentation, handles encryption and translation, like TLS for your browser or converting JPEG images. Layer 7, application, is where the user interacts, HTTP, SMTP, FTP. Now, let's focus on 3 critical services. DNS uses port 53. Without DNS, you'd have to remember 8.8.8.8 instead of google.com. But DNS was not designed with security. Attackers can spoof DNS replies, or they can perform a zone transfer to copy your entire DNS database, a terrible leak of internal information. That's why we use DNSSEC. DHCP uses ports 67 and 68. It gives your device an IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and DNS server. The DORA process, discover, offer, request, acknowledge, is how it works. But a rogue DHCP server can hand out bad addresses or a malicious DNS server, redirecting all your traffic. That's why we have DHCP snooping. SMTP uses port 25. It sends email. Simple mail transfer protocol, but simple means insecure. Attackers can use open relays to send spam, or spoof email from your domain. That's why we have SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, authentication methods for email. From a business perspective, a DNS hijack can take down your entire website. A rogue DHCP server can intercept all internal traffic. These are not theoretical, they happen. Let's test you. Question 1. Which protocol automatically assigns IP addresses to devices? A. DNS, B. DHCP, C. SMTP, D. ARP. Pause. Answer B. DHCP. DNS resolves names, SMTP sends email, ARP maps IP to MAC. Right. Question 2. Which port does DNS use for queries? A. 25, B. 53, C. 67, D. 80. Pause. Answer B. 53. 25 is SMTP, 67 is DHCP server, 80 is HTTP. Excellent. Question 3, harder. An attacker sets up a rogue DHCP server on a network. It offers IP addresses and configures clients with a malicious DNS server. What is the primary risk? A. The attacker can sniff all traffic. B. The attacker can redirect clients to malicious websites via the fake DNS server. C. The attacker can crash the network. D. The attacker can steal email passwords. Pause. Answer B. By controlling DNS, the attacker sends victims to fake banking or phishing sites. Sniffing is possible, but the main risk is DNS redirection. Great analysis. Challenge question. What is the purpose of DNSSEC? A. To encrypt DNS queries. B. To digitally sign DNS records to prevent spoofing. C. To assign IP addresses securely. D. To block DNS queries from attackers. Pause. Answer B. DNSSEC adds digital signatures to DNS records, so clients can verify they are authentic. It does not encrypt, it authenticates. Superb. 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking DNS is only for browsing. Every application uses DNS. Trap 2, believing DHCP snooping is optional. In a secure network, it's essential to prevent rogue servers. Trap 3, forgetting that SMTP needs TLS to protect email in transit, otherwise it's plaintext. 3 tips. Tip 1. Memorize the ports, DNS 53, DHCP 6768, SMTP 25. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see automatic IP assignment, think DHCP. Tip 3. DENSEC, SPF, DKIM, MARC, know that these are authentication/verification protocols, not encryption. Now that you understand the protocols, let's look at how we physically connect devices, the topologies. Ring, star, bus, mesh, each has a different security posture. Imagine a chain of people holding hands. If one person lets go, the chain breaks. That's a ring. Now imagine a central hub with spokes going out to each person. If one spoke breaks, the rest still work, that's a star. Now imagine a single long line with people attached along it. If that line gets cut, everyone downstream is disconnected, that's a bus. Now imagine everyone holding hands with everyone else, that's a mesh. Let's break down each topology from a security perspective. Ring, closed loop. Easy to install, but a single break or compromised device can bring down the entire network. Token ring used this, but it's rare today. Star, every device connects to a central switch. This is the modern standard. If one device fails, the rest work. But the central switch is a single point of failure, and a high-value target for attackers. Bus, a single backbone cable. Cheap, but a break or a fault anywhere brings down the whole network. Obsolete for Ethernet, but you might see it in legacy industrial systems. Mesh, every device connects to every other. Maximum redundancy, if one link fails, traffic reroutes. Used in critical infrastructure and wireless networks. But it's expensive and complex to manage. Full mesh is rare, partial mesh is more common. From a business perspective, the cost of downtime drives topology decisions. A star is cheap and easy, but a failed switch can halt an entire department. A mesh is expensive, but it keeps critical systems running even after multiple failures. Let's test you. Question 1. Which topology has a single point of failure at the central device? A. Ring, B. Star, C. Bus, D. Mesh. Pause. Answer B. Star. The central switch fails, the whole network fails. Right. Question 2. In which topology does a break in the cable affect the entire network? A. Star, B. Mesh, C. Bus, D. Tree. Pause. Answer C. Bus. A break in the backbone takes down everything downstream. In ring, a break also affects the whole ring unless it's a dual ring. Question 3, harder. A company designs a wireless mesh network for outdoor sensors. Each sensor relays data for others. What is the primary security challenge? A. High latency, B. Single point of failure, C. Increased attack surface because each node can be a relay, D. Lack of redundancy. Pause. Answer C. In a mesh, every node can act as a router. Compromising one node allows the attacker to intercept or modify traffic from many others. Excellent. Challenge question. Which topology is most resilient to a physical cable cut? A. Star, B. Bus, C. Single ring, D. Full mesh. Pause. Answer D. Full mesh. Multiple paths allow traffic to reroute. On the exam, full mesh is the answer for maximum redundancy. 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking star has no single point of failure, it does. Protect that central switch. Trap 2, believing bus is still common, it's not, except in legacy systems. Trap 3, forgetting that mesh is expensive. Most organizations use partial mesh, not full. 3 tips. Tip 1, for the exam, know the advantages and disadvantages of each topology. Tip 2, if you need redundancy, think mesh. If you need simplicity, think star. Tip 3, understand that physical topology affects security. A compromised central switch in a star gives the attacker everything. Now that you know how networks are built, let's talk about how they are attacked. SYN floods, man-in-the-middle, session hijacking, eavesdropping, these are the classic threats. Have you ever been on a website that slows to a crawl, and then you see a message, "We are experiencing high traffic"? Sometimes it's real customers. Sometimes it's SYN flood. A SYN flood attacks the TCP three-way handshake. The attacker sends a flood of SYN packets, the first step, but never replies to the SYN ACK. The server holds each half-open connection, waiting. Eventually, it runs out of memory and stops accepting new connections. That's a denial of service. Man-in-the-middle, MITM, is exactly what it sounds like. The attacker positions themselves between two parties, you and your bank, and intercepts everything. They can see your password, modify the transaction, or just pass it through undetected. Session hijacking takes over an authenticated session. After you log into a site, you get a session cookie. If an attacker steals that cookie, via eavesdropping or a cross-site script, they can use it to impersonate you. They bypass the login step completely. Eavesdropping or sniffing is passive listening. On an unencrypted network, like a coffee shop Wi-Fi, anyone can capture packets. That's how attackers steal plaintext passwords. From a business perspective, these attacks lead to data theft, financial fraud, and massive reputation damage. A single MITM attack on a bank can drain thousands of accounts before it's detected. Let's test you. Question 1. Which attack sends incomplete TCP handshake packets to overwhelm a server? A. SYN flood, B. MITM, C. Session hijacking, D. Eavesdropping. Pause. Answer A. SYN flood. Right on. Question 2. Which attack is passive and involves listening to network traffic without modification? A. SYN flood, B. MITM, C. Session hijacking, D. Eavesdropping. Pause. Answer D. Eavesdropping. Sniffing is passive. The others are active. Question 3, harder. An attacker captures a user's session cookie over unencrypted Wi-Fi and then uses it to impersonate the user on a website. Which two attacks are combined? A. SYN flood and session hijacking, B. Eavesdropping and session hijacking, C. MITM and SYN flood, D. Eavesdropping and MITM. Pause. Answer B. Eavesdropping captures the cookie, session hijacking uses it. Great combination analysis. Challenge question. A website uses HTTPS, TLS. Can an attacker still perform a man-in-the-middle attack? A. No, TLS prevents all MITM, B. Yes, if the attacker can spoof a certificate or the user ignores a warning, C. No, TLS encrypts everything, D. Yes, but only if the attacker has physical access. Pause. Answer B. TLS encrypts the data, but MITM is still possible if the attacker can present a fake certificate and the user ignores the warning. That's why certificate validation is critical. Superb. 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking sniffing is always illegal. On your own network, it's not, but it's a security risk. Trap 2, confusing MITM with session hijacking. MITM is active interception, session hijacking takes over after the session is established. Trap 3, forgetting that encryption, TLS, does not prevent all MITM attacks, only those that can't forge certificates. 3 tips. Tip 1, for the exam, know the differences: half-open connections SYN flood, passive listening eavesdropping, cookie reuse session hijacking. Tip 2, always use TLS, but also educate users not to ignore certificate warnings. Tip 3, network segmentation limits the impact of MITM and eavesdropping. Now that you know how attackers strike, let's talk about how we defend, with firewalls. Packet filtering, stateful inspection, and next-gen firewalls each have a role. Think of a firewall as a security guard at the entrance to your building. The first guard only looks at your ID photo, that's packet filtering. The second guard watches you go in and remembers that you should come back out, that's stateful inspection. The third guard actually reads your facial expressions and checks your body language for deception, that's a next-gen firewall. Packet filtering firewalls operate at layer 3. They look at source IP, destination IP, port, and protocol. They don't know if a packet is part of a legitimate conversation. They are fast, but easy to fool. An attacker can spoof source IP addresses. Stateful inspection firewalls operate at layers 3 and 4. They track connection state, whether a packet belongs to an established, legitimate session. They remember the three-way handshake. If a packet doesn't match an allowed connection, they drop it. Much more secure, but still don't look inside the application data. Next-generation firewalls, NGFW, operate up to layer 7. They perform deep packet inspection, DPI. They can identify the application, even if it's on a non-standard port. They can block malware in the data stream. They often include intrusion prevention. From a business perspective, NGFWs are essential for modern threats. Packet filtering alone won't stop an application layer attack. But NGFWs cost more and require more processing power, so it's a trade-off. Let's test you. Question 1. Which type of firewall operates only at layer 3 and does not track connection state? A. Packet filtering, B. Stateful inspection, C. NGFW, D. Proxy firewall. Pause. Answer A. Packet filtering. Fast but stateless. Right. Question 2. Which firewall can decrypt TLS traffic and inspect the application payload? A. Packet filtering, B. Stateful inspection, C. NGFW, D. Stateless. Pause. Answer C. NGFW. Deep packet inspection looks inside the application data. Question 3, harder. A company uses a stateful firewall that allows outbound web traffic on port 80. An attacker inside the network establishes a reverse shell to an external server on port 443, HTTPS. The firewall allows the outbound HTTPS because the connection was initiated from inside. What is missing? A. The firewall should block all outbound HTTPS. B. Application layer inspection could detect that the traffic is not legitimate web browsing. C. The firewall needs to block port 443 entirely. D. The firewall should not allow any outbound connections. Pause. Answer B. NGFW with application inspection could identify the reverse shell because it's not real HTTPS traffic. Great insight. Challenge question. A security analyst sees many outbound connections on port 53, DNS, to an unknown external server. What could this indicate? A. Normal DNS traffic, B. A DNS tunnel, data exfiltration, C. A misconfigured DHCP server, D. ASYN flood. Pause. Answer B. Malware often uses DNS tunnels to exfiltrate data because DNS is usually allowed through firewalls. Excellent catch. 3 traps. Trap 1. Thinking stateful firewalls inspect application data, they don't. That's NGFW. Trap 2. Believing NGFWs replace all other firewalls, they complement them. Packet filtering still has use for performance. Trap 3, forgetting that firewalls need proper rules. A misconfigured rule can open a huge hole. 3 tips. Tip 1, know the layers, packet filter, L3, stateful, L3 L4, NGFW, L7. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see application layer inspection, think NGFW. Tip 3, remember that NGFWs can prevent application-based attacks like SQL injection. Now that you know about firewalls, let's see how we put them to work in a real network architecture, the LAN, the DMZ, and the wild internet. Imagine an ancient castle. Outside the walls is the wild, full of enemies, that's the internet. Inside the walls is a guarded courtyard where they keep public services, that's the DMZ. Deep inside, the inner keep is where the royal family lives, that's the internal LAN. The wild internet, completely untrusted. You must assume every packet is hostile. The DMZ, demilitarized zone, a screen subnet. It contains public-facing servers, web servers, email servers, DNS. These machines are exposed to the internet, so they are likely to be attacked. But they are isolated from the internal LAN. If a web server is compromised, the attacker still faces another firewall to reach internal assets. The internal LAN, highly trusted. Contains internal workstations, databases, and confidential data. Protected by a strict internal firewall that allows only specific traffic from the DMZ, and often not directly. Strategic insight: never trust a DMZ server just because it's behind a firewall. Assume it will be compromised. Designed so that a breach in the DMZ does not become a breach of your internal network. From a business perspective, this three-zone architecture is standard for any organization that wants to avoid a total breach. Without a DMZ, a web server compromise would give the attacker free access to internal resources. Let's test you. Question 1. Which zone should contain public web servers? A. Internal LAN, B. DMZ, C. Internet, D. Management network. Pause. Answer B. DMZ. Right. Question 2. Which traffic flow is generally allowed by a well-configured firewall? A. From Internet directly to internal LAN, B. From internal LAN to DMZ and Internet, C. From DMZ to internal LAN unrestricted, D. From Internet to internal LAN for any port. Pause. Answer B. Internal users can reach DMZ servers and the Internet. The Internet cannot directly initiate connections to internal LAN. Question 3, harder. A company places its email server in the DMZ. The server receives email from the Internet and forwards it to internal mail servers. The internal servers must accept connections from the DMZ server. What is the security risk? A. The DMZ server could be compromised and used to attack internal systems. B. Email is not encrypted. C. The DMZ server is a single point of failure. D. There is no risk. Pause. Answer A. If the DMZ email server is compromised, the attacker can use its trusted connection to the internal mail servers to pivot. Mitigation: restrict traffic to only necessary protocols and consider additional inspection. Challenge question. A company has a web server in the DMZ that needs to query an internal database. What is the safest way to allow this? A. Allow unrestricted DMZ to internal access. B. Allow only the web server's specific IP to reach only the database on a specific port, and use a firewall rule that permits responses. C. Move the database to the DMZ. D. Block all DMZ to internal traffic. Pause. Answer B. Least privilege, only the necessary connection, not a full tunnel. Excellent. 3 traps. Trap 1. Thinking the DMZ is completely separate. It is logically separate, but trust relationships can be exploited. Trap 2. Believing that DMZ servers are safe, they are not. Assume they will be compromised. Trap 3. Forgetting to apply the same security patches to DMZ servers as internal servers, sometimes even stricter. 3 tips. Tip 1. Remember the 3 zones: Internet, untrusted; DMZ, semi-trusted; internal, trusted. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see public-facing servers, think DMZ. Tip 3. Strategic insight: never allow unsolicited traffic from DMZ to internal, only allow responses to requests initiated from inside. Now that you understand wired network segmentation, let's go wireless. WEP, WPA2, WPA3, each one is a generation in the battle for secure Wi-Fi. Remember the early days of Wi-Fi? You could connect to your neighbor's unsecured network just by clicking. Then came WEP. It was supposed to be as secure as wired, but it was broken in minutes. RC4 encryption with static keys, an attacker could capture enough packets and crack the key. WEP is dead. Never use it. Then came WPA2. WPA2 uses AES encryption with the CCMP protocol. It's been the standard for over a decade. But it has a weakness: the pre-shared key, the password, can be captured during the handshake and attacked offline. If your password is weak, an attacker can crack it. Also, crack attacks, key reinstallation, can break WPA2 under certain conditions. Now we have WPA3. WPA3 introduces simultaneous authentication of equals, SAE. Instead of sharing a password in the handshake, it uses a cryptographic protocol that never reveals the password. Offline dictionary attacks become infeasible. It also provides individualized encryption. Each device gets its own key, so one user can't sniff another's traffic. From a business perspective, use WPA3 if your hardware supports it. Otherwise, use WPA2 with a strong, complex password and enable patches for crack. Never, ever use WEP. Let's test you. Question 1. Which wireless protocol uses RC4 and is considered completely insecure? A. WPA2, B. WPA3, C. WEP, D. 802.1x. Pause. Answer C. WEP. Right. Question 2. Which protocol uses AES with CCMP and is currently the minimum standard for secure Wi-Fi? A. WEP, B. WPA, C. WPA2, D. WPA3. Pause. Answer C. WPA2. WPA3 is better, but WPA2 is still widely accepted. Question 3, harder. An attacker captures a WPA2 handshake and performs an offline dictionary attack to recover the password. WPA3 uses SAE to prevent this. What does SAE do? A. It uses longer passwords. B. It uses a zero-knowledge proof that prevents offline dictionary attacks. C. It encrypts the handshake with AES. D. It requires a certificate. Pause. Answer B. SAE never reveals password information in the handshake, so offline attacks are impossible. Great. Challenge question. Your company has a mix of older laptops that only support WPA2 and newer devices that support WPA3. What should you do? A. Use only WPA2, B. Use only WPA3, C. Use WPA3 transition mode, which allows both WPA2 and WPA3 devices to connect. D. Disable Wi-Fi. Pause. Answer C. WPA3 transition mode is designed for exactly this scenario. It's not as secure as pure WPA3, but it's better than only WPA2. 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking WPA2 is unbreakable, it is vulnerable to weak passwords and crack. Trap 2, believing that WPA3 is just about encryption, it also improves authentication with SAE. Trap 3, forgetting that 802.1x is an authentication framework, not an encryption protocol. It can be used with WPA2 Enterprise. 3 tips. Tip 1, know the sequence: WEP, insecure; WPA2, current minimum; WPA3, future. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see RC4, think WEP. If you see SAE or individualized encryption, think WPA3. Tip 3, always use WPA3 with SAE if possible. For now, WPA2 with a long, random password is acceptable. Now that your network is encrypted wirelessly, How do you make sure only authorized devices can even plug into your Ethernet ports? That's where 802.1x comes in, port-based authentication. Imagine you have a building with a reception desk. Before anyone can walk past the lobby, they must show ID. That's 802.1x, but for network ports. 802.1x has three components. The supplicant, that's your laptop. The authenticator, the switch or wireless access point. And the authentication server, usually Radius. When you plug into a port, the switch blocks all traffic. It won't even give you an IP address until you authenticate. Your laptop, supplicant, sends credentials to the switch, authenticator. The switch tunnels those credentials using EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol, to the Radius server. If the Radius server says OK, the switch opens the port and lets you on the network. If not, the port stays dark. EAP has many flavors. EAP TLS uses digital certificates, very secure but complex to manage. EAP uses a username and password inside a TLS tunnel, more common. From a business perspective, 802.1x prevents unauthorized devices, like an attacker plugging in a laptop, from gaining network access. It's essential for any secure organization, especially for controlling physical ports in public areas. Let's test you. Question 1. Which protocol does 802.1x use to securely transport authentication information? A. EAP, B. TLS, C. IPsec, D. SSH. Pause. Answer A. EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol. Right. Question 2. In an 802.1x deployment, which component is the Radius server? A. Supplicant, B. Authenticator, C. Authentication server, D. Client. Pause. Answer C. Authentication server. Supplicant is the client, authenticator is the switch/AP. Excellent. Question 3, harder. A company implements 802.1x with EAP TLS. What must be deployed on each client device? A. A username and password, B. A digital certificate, C. An SMS token, D. A MAC address. Pause. Answer B. EAP TLS requires a client certificate for mutual authentication. That's why it's so secure, and why it's harder to manage. Challenge question. A switch is configured for 802.1x, but a printer connected to a port cannot authenticate. What should you do? A. Disable 802.1x on that port, B. Put the printer on a separate VLAN with MAC authentication bypass, MAB, a weaker but necessary control, C. Remove the printer, D. Use a different switch. Pause. Answer B. MAB allows devices that don't support 802.1x to authenticate by MAC address. Not as secure, but often necessary for printers and older devices. Great real-world solution. 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking 802.1x only applies to wireless, it also works on wired switches. Trap 2, believing that 802.1x eliminates the need for encryption, it does not. Wireless must still use WPA2/WPA3. Trap 3, forgetting that misconfigured 802.1x can lock out legitimate users. Test before widespread deployment. 3 tips. Tip 1, know the 3 roles, supplicant, authenticator, authentication server. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see port-based authentication, think 802.1x. Tip 3, understand that EAP methods vary, EAP TLS is most secure, EAP is more common. Now that we control access to the network, let's secure the data that travels across it, with IPsec. ESP, tunnel mode, transport mode, these are the building blocks of secure VPNs. Imagine you're sending a confidential letter. You could put it in a sealed envelope, that hides the content but not the address. That's transport mode. Or you could put the envelope inside another envelope, with a new address, that hides both the original content and the original addressing. That's tunnel mode. IPsec has two main protocols. Authentication header, provides integrity and authentication. It signs the packet, but does not encrypt it. So the data is still readable, but you can verify it hasn't been tampered with. It also covers the outer IP headers, which ESP does not. ESP, encapsulating security payload, provides confidentiality, encryption, integrity, and authentication. It encrypts the payload. It is the standard choice for VPNs, operating modes. Transport mode encrypts only the payload of the IP packet. The original IP header remains in clear. Used for end-to-end communication between two hosts on the same private network. Tunnel mode encrypts the entire original IP packet and wraps it in a new IP header. Used for site-to-site VPNs, the outer header routes the packet across the internet, while the inner header remains secret. From a business perspective, IPsec is the backbone of secure remote access and site-to-site connectivity. Without it, transmitting sensitive data across the internet would be impossible. Let's test you. Question 1. Which IPsec protocol provides encryption? A. AH, B. ESP, C. IC, D. ISACAMP. Pause. Answer B. ESP, AH provides authentication only. Question 2. Which mode of IPsec is typically used for a site-to-site VPN? A. Transport mode, B. Tunnel mode, C. Mixed mode, D. Bridge mode. Pause. Answer B. Tunnel mode. It encapsulates the entire original packet. Great. Question 3, harder. A network administrator configures IPsec in transport mode between two servers. They use AH only. What security service is provided? A. Confidentiality and integrity, B. Integrity and authentication, but no confidentiality, C. Confidentiality only, D. Authenticity only. Pause. Answer B. AH provides integrity and authentication, but no encryption. The data is sent in clear text. Challenge question. For a site-to-site VPN across the internet, which combination is most common? A. AH in transport mode, B. ESP in tunnel mode, C. AH in tunnel mode, D. ESP in transport mode. Pause. Answer B. ESP in tunnel mode provides encryption and hides the original IP addresses. That's the standard. 3 traps. Trap 1, thinking AH is obsolete, it's still used where encryption is not needed or allowed. Trap 2, confusing transport versus tunnel modes, transport protects payload only, tunnel protects entire packet. Trap 3, believing IPsec is only for VPNs, it can also secure direct host-to-host communication. 3 tips. Tip 1, memorize AH, no encryption, versus ESP, encryption. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see header authentication only, think AH. If you see encapsulation, think ESP or tunnel mode. Tip 3, know that IKE, Internet Key Exchange, is the protocol that sets up IPsec sessions. Now that we've protected data in transit, let's step back and look at the big picture, zero trust and microsegmentation. This is how we defend networks when we can no longer trust the inside. Think of a traditional network as a castle with a moat. Once you're inside the moat, you're trusted. That worked when everyone was in the office. But now, with cloud, remote workers, and mobile devices, the inside is everywhere. The attacker might already be inside, through a compromised laptop or a vendor account. Zero trust changes the philosophy. Never trust, always verify. Location no longer grants implicit trust. The inside is treated with the same hostility as the outside. Every access request is authenticated, authorized, and encrypted, even between two servers in the same data center. But how do you enforce that granularly? That's where microsegmentation comes in. Using software-defined networking, SDN, you can place an individual firewall around every workload, each virtual machine, each container, even each application. If one workload is compromised, the attacker cannot move laterally to others without specific, explicit permissions. The goal: reduce the blast radius. A breach in a single microsegment stays in that segment. The infection is isolated. From a business perspective, zero trust and microsegmentation are essential for modern security. They limit damage, reduce downtime, and help meet compliance requirements. Let's test you. Question 1. What is the core principle of zero trust? A. Trust but verify. B. Never trust, always verify. C. Always trust internal networks. D. Trust the perimeter firewall. Pause. Answer B. Never trust, always verify. Right. Question 2. Which technology enables microsegmentation by programmatically controlling traffic between workloads? A. VLAN. B. SDN. C. VXLAN. D. STP. Pause. Answer B. Software-defined networking. SDN allows dynamic, granular policy enforcement. Question 3, harder. A company implements microsegmentation in its data center. A developer accidentally exposes a database to the internet via a misconfigured firewall rule, but microsegmentation policies still restrict the database to accept only connections from the web server. What is the outcome? A. The database is still exposed to the internet. B. The microsegmentation policy overrides the accidental misconfiguration and still blocks external connections. C. The database becomes inaccessible to all. D. The web server loses access. Pause. Answer B. Microsegmentation policies are per workload. They can block unintended access even if a higher-level firewall rule is wrong. That's defense in depth. Challenge question. An attacker compromises a user's laptop via a phishing attack. The laptop has valid 802.1x credentials. Can the attacker move laterally to a database in another microsegment? A. Yes, because the laptop is authenticated on the network. B. No, because microsegmentation policies restrict each workload's access. The laptop likely does not have permission to reach the database. C. Yes, because TLS encrypts traffic, helping the attacker hide. D. No, because 802.1x prevents any lateral movement. Pause. Answer B. Microsegmentation enforces per workload permissions. Even if the laptop is on the network, it cannot access services it is not authorized to. Excellent. 3 traps. Trap 1. Thinking zero trust means no trust at all. It means verify every request, not that everyone is untrusted. Trap 2. Believing microsegmentation is only for cloud, it works in on-prem data centers too. Trap 3. Forgetting that zero trust requires continuous monitoring and analytics, not just policies. 3 tips. Tip 1. Remember the mantra, never trust, always verify. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see lateral movement prevention, think microsegmentation. Tip 3. Understand that zero trust is a journey, not a product. Start with identifying critical assets. Now, let's put everything together. Domain 4 is about defense in depth, layers of security that overlap and reinforce each other. No single control is enough. We've covered a lot. From the OSI model all the way to zero trust. Let me tie the threads together. Layered architecture, the OSI model gives us a blueprint. Physical security at layer 1, MAC controls at layer 2, firewalls and routing at layer 3, TCP/UDP at layer 4, and application security at layers 5-7. Each layer can be attacked, and each layer must be defended. Mandatory encryption, from 802.1x to WPA3 to IPsec, data must be protected in transit. Eavesdropping is too easy on modern networks. Assume your network is being sniffed. Defense in depth, use multiple controls. A firewall alone is not enough. Add microsegmentation. Add 802.1x. Add strong authentication. Add monitoring. If one control fails, others stand ready. The CISSP mindset: never assume trust. Always verify. Segment everything. And always think like an attacker. Let's end with 3 final questions. Question 1. Which of the following is a defense in-depth strategy? A. Relying only on a perimeter firewall. B. Using multiple layers, firewall, IDS, microsegmentation, encryption. C. Disabling all security controls. D. Using only antivirus. Pause. Answer B. Multiple layers. That's defense in depth. Question 2. Which technology would you use to prevent lateral movement after a breach? A. VLAN. B. Microsegmentation. C. NAT. D. ARP. Pause. Answer B. Microsegmentation. Question 3. Hardest. A company has deployed a zero-trust architecture with microsegmentation, 802.1x, and TLS for internal traffic. An attacker compromises a user's laptop via a phishing attack. The laptop has valid 802.1x credentials. Can the attacker move laterally to a database in another microsegment? A. Yes, because the laptop is on the network. B. No, because microsegmentation policies restrict each workload's access. The laptop does not have permission. C. Yes, because the attacker can bypass TLS. D. No, because 802.1x blocks all traffic after authentication. Pause. Answer B. Microsegmentation is the key. It specifically prevents lateral movement even if the laptop is authenticated. That's the power of zero trust. Challenge question, final. A network security engineer says, we don't need a DMZ. We have a strong firewall and microsegmentation. Is this safe? A. Yes, microsegmentation replaces the DMZ. B. No, the DMZ provides a buffer zone specifically designed for public-facing servers, adding another layer of defense. C. Yes, the firewall alone is enough. D. No, but only because the firewall is weak. Pause. Answer B. The DMZ is still a valuable architectural pattern. Microsegmentation is complementary, not a replacement. Defense in depth means using both. 3 final traps. Trap 1, thinking one tool is enough, no single control is infallible. Trap 2, believing that encryption alone stops attacks. It doesn't, it protects confidentiality, but not execution. Trap 3, forgetting that users are often the weakest link, training and phishing simulations are controls too. 3 final tips. Tip 1, always layer your defenses, like an onion. Tip 2, on the exam, think like an attacker and counter with multiple layers. Tip 3, keep learning, network security evolves daily. You have now completed a masterclass on CISSP Domain 4, Communication and Network Security. You've learned the architecture, the protocols, the attacks, and the defenses. You've seen how each layer contributes to defense in depth. You've answered dozens of questions. You've avoided the traps. You're ready. I wish you the best of luck on your exam. Keep building secure networks. Never trust, always verify. And I'll see you in the next video.